Here we go.
By the end of next year, I think we'd be selling humanoid robots to the public.
It's great to have you here tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Derek Whittaker from Blue Sky Factory. And tonight we've got a very special and timely presentation. I don't know about you, but we're kind of going from the stage of enjoying AI and the little videos that come out and the quirks of it. But inadvertently, you're probably using AI and you don't even know it. I mean, how many of you used a navigation monitor at some point today on your phone or something like that? You probably use Siri at some point. These are all AI applications that are coming through. And even Zoom here has basically AI applications. Some of you said, okay, Claude skills, fantastic. So you're getting into it. This image that you're seeing here on this was generated by AI, thanks to AI. And gosh, the quality is just getting better and better and better over the last 6 months. It's really had a leap up and leap forward. I don't know if you've noticed that. We'll dive into this disclaimer real quick, get the formalities out the way. Before we start, we need to tell you up front, we're not a licensed financial planning, accounting, or law firm. We're simply an education company who'll give you factual information. We do not give you general or specific advice around finance, business, investing, options, trading, accounting, cryptocurrency investing, or trading precious metals or anything else. That's not what this presentation, of course, does. Please see a licensed financial planner, accountant, lawyer when it comes to any investment advice you need. Some of you have met me before, worked with me before. Some of you haven't. Just a quick little introduction as to who I am. I basically am the founder of Blue Sky Factory. We started about 12 years ago now, and it's interesting. AI told me that for the kind of business model we have, that's extraordinary. It said most fail in 18 months. And I thought to myself, yeah, I can understand that. I remember how hard it was at the 18-month mark when starting a business. So if any of the entrepreneurs here can appreciate what I'm saying, I'm sure the honeymoon period gets out the way and it's like, okay, we've got to make this happen. But hey, we've worked through it and got through it. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons that I learned. A guy called Roy McDonald said most businesses fail because people give up. And I determined in my heart, can't give up. Not allowed to, can't. There were too many people waiting on this. My wife, a child, and we had one on the way at the time. And we had to make it happen. We started with my real passion for options trading, stock options trading, and teaching very advanced strategies to people. I had mentors in the finance game who were teaching me strategies of $30,000 to $40,000 a month, how they made that income. And I started learning the strategies from them and got excited about it. And somebody said to me, Derek, you need to teach this. And so they approached me to teach it. And that's how I fell in love with that. And I was consulting in the high-end accounting, law, and financial planning firms, and discovered that, I enjoyed that more, the education side more than consulting. So went from there. We've helped a lot of people start businesses in the past as well. Also, I consult to an accounting firm under their licenses and help clients with asset protection, tax minimization. We're all trying to get our heads around what this federal announcement could mean and the implications for the tax market at the moment. But yeah, there's a lot going on in that space at the moment. And I think it's quite exciting where this country is going because people are finally waking up and going, well, things aren't as they seem. And I'm like, yeah, we've been trying to tell you this for how many years now? So that, from my perspective, is an exciting thing. But yeah, I used to work in the high-end law, accounting, financial planning firms. And before that, I had a role in media. I worked in radio for 14 years. So loved combining those kind of skills together. On the personal side, I have a wife and 4 children, and that keeps us very busy and on our toes. The grandparents have had the 3 girls today, which is great. So it's been really quiet around the place. I'm not used to it. Pascal called me this morning. I was still trying to disorient her. I said, man, you're calling me early. And then I realized, no, it's not early because everyone's up, but the noise isn't there. And I was like, normally it's 7 o'clock, 7 a.m. They're starting to get noisy and crawling out of bed. Anyway, let's get into AI. I tell you, it's really fascinating, this space here, because we're going to do 2 things tonight. All right, we're going to start with the things that are happening at the moment. You've got the AI industrial revolution happening at the moment. And I call it industrial revolution because I think that's the implications that's happening and hitting the workspace, whether people recognize it or not. And the second part of that is we're going to be looking at the great wealth transfer, which is an incredible phenomena that's happening geopolitically right now, where wealth is going from the wicked to the righteous, and there are really great, exciting opportunities in that space. So how do you feel about AI? How's everybody feeling about it? Type in the chat. Do you love it? Do you hate it? How you feeling about it? You excited about it? You're not sure? There's all these different emotions I'm finding that are kind of related to AI. And let's have a look at what you've put here. Yeah. Some are excited, scared, excited. I love the honesty there. Yeah. Brilliant opportunity. No worries, Ian. Thank you for letting us know about that. Excited, useful tool, but got to watch it. Excited about the tool, but worried about how it will impact future generations. Yeah, I'm hearing you. As long as it doesn't take jobs. Excited, unsure. All right, excellent. Great. All of those are legitimate concerns, feelings, excitement. It's all there. We're going into an area where the toothpaste is out of the tube. We can't go back. And yeah, it's certainly interesting. Mark has written it certainly has its advantages, but it's also an interesting, tricky time for a lot of industries. Absolutely. We're all trying to navigate through it. All right. So the question is how you're currently using it. Some people are using it with a chat GPT and kind of using it like a Google search. Other people are getting more in depth with it. There are different levels of coming into AI. And yeah, kind of reflect on how are you using it. As I mentioned earlier, sometimes you're using it inadvertently, whether you know it or not. Somebody says, "Hey Siri," and it just starts talking to you, and fascinating how that works. I think my wake up to AI really started when my son created a song in Suno in just 10 minutes. And this happened about 12 months ago and that. Obviously, you've seen AI and you kind of think, yeah, that's cute, that's nice, and all the little things it does. But having come from the music industry, he wrote this song and I thought, far out. I was like, son, have you realized what you've just done? Because back in the day, you used to have a songwriter. Then you'd have to have musicians. Then you'd have to have a singer or singers, as the case may be. You'd have to have a studio engineer. You'd have to have a studio. And then you'd have to have a distribution company too to get the music out there. You're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And the risk to record companies was a 1 in 9 ratio. They knew that out of 9 investments, one of them would be a hit and they'd get their money back in that one artist. So suddenly he creates this, and I don't know if you've seen the ads around Valentine's Day, guys, but encouraging blokes to customize a song for their wife around Valentine's Day and doing that. There are companies that are doing those kind of things as well, which is fun. But yeah, Suno, the quality of the music, I thought, man, he wrote an anthem for a little piece of history called the Emu War in WA. Google it; it's quite an interesting piece where basically you had in history a cull of emus, and the Australian Army was given the task of culling all these emus. We can imagine a bunch of blokes out there with a bunch of ammo out in the middle of the bush. How much fun that's going to be when there's no real threat to life. And this is what happened. Obviously, they used far more ammo than they killed emus. And so it's been said in history in Western Australia that the Australian Army lost the Emu War and the emus won. Well, that's a little piece of history. There's all these different videos out there about this, taking the mickey out of it, with guys in slow-mo and all this sort of stuff and going through PSTD through the Emu War. And not to make light of our vets who I have a number of vets I work with in this course, but it's an interesting little unique piece of history pertinent to Western Australia. Well, my son, this captured his imagination. He loves history. And so he wrote an anthem called the Emu Anthem Song. And I listened to it, and it was a lot better than some of the AFL anthems of teams that are out there. And the quality was just fantastic. So that caught my attention. This stuff is just getting better and better and better. And so I started looking into it more. Let's have a look at this little news report. This is fun. This is from a different application of AI. Take a look.
Well, here's something you don't see every day: a humanoid robot chasing a herd of wild boars. Yeah, the now viral video from Poland shows the robot named Edward. As it chased the boars out of a Warsaw neighborhood, Edward can be heard shouting, "Go away," in Polish as the animals fled into the forest before then waving goodbye. The AI-generated robot has become an internet personality, even meeting with the Polish parliament and appearing on Polish morning shows.
It's got to run a little faster. Come on, Edward. Pick it up.
Well, that may be handy. These humanoids are certainly taking a capture in imagination. I mean, you can imagine one down there by the water with seagulls try to get your chips. That might be helpful chasing the birds out. Take a look at this. This is what they're developing in China at the moment. They're doing a human versus robot marathon, and they're testing these bots. Check this out.
这种要遮了呢，感觉。
Well, it's incredible what they're able to do, isn't it? I mean, that's some of that fluid motion, smooth ones is just extraordinary. This one's a little bit on the violent side. I do apologize for sensitive viewers. We might have to give it a PG rating. Once you see this, you can't unsee this. We can't say that no robots were hurt in the filming of this video.
哎，小心！哎，别走了，别走了，这边有事儿。先生，大家注意一下。就这个 bumper， 你看啊，前面已经有人在这 bumper 上栽跟头了啊！走过这个线吧。
Who would have thought that a robot needed a stretcher, right? So that's fascinating. But this is really interesting. I was in the grocery store the other day or the shopping mall. Ray-Ban Meta AI glasses allow you to send text messages, listen to music, take videos and pictures using a wristband. So what they do is they have a sensor on their wrist and they can see this. This is more top of the line, around $1,600 US, and they've got some as cheap as 10 US dollars, not Ray-Bans, but other smart glasses. These are on the market in those price ranges. What's a real concern? I have a friend who's in the real estate industry, and he says it's a real concern when you see people there with these glasses and they know you're filming you, and they could just take this video and tell the seller what's going on. You've really got to watch what you say. And I've heard of other situations where people are recognizing on Facebook different people's names and going up and going, "Hi, are you so and so? You work for such and such a company, don't you?" And these people go, yeah, okay. So it's really interesting, the whole social dynamic of what AI is doing in the marketplace. And there it is in our own shopping malls. Well, AI, as you know, doesn't always get it right. Take a look at this one.
It's almost every little cul-de-sac around our area, so I think it's a real problem.
Waymo after Waymo after Waymo enter this dead-end street, usually early in the morning.
I think yesterday morning we had 50 cars that came through between 6 and 7.
Neighbors on Battleview Drive started seeing the autonomous, driverless cars 2 months ago, but the groupings and large number of Waymos just started circling in and out in the last couple weeks. They even shared video with us when neighbors used this little guy to put him right out here in the street to block the Waymos from getting into the cul-de-sac, and you can imagine what happened next.
And we had at one point 8 Waymos that were stuck trying to figure out how to turn around.
The Waymos are empty and not picking anyone up, and parents are worried, not only calling it excessive, but dangerous.
We're families, we have small kids, we have animals and pets, we've got kids getting on the bus in the mornings, and it just doesn't feel safe to have that traffic.
Neighbors reached out to Waymo and have not got a response. They've also contacted their council member, representatives, and GDOT, and don't know what to do.
We would just like to see them stay on main traffic roads. I don't think there's any reason to be on small residential cul-de-sacs if they're not picking up somebody.
Imagine that, you can't even get out of your own driveway due to driverless cars, right? So it's not always working as we'd like it. There are bugs in the system still being bugged out. I heard of one situation where somebody had given permission to their AI to make financial purchases on their behalf, and basically said, they wrote to AI and said, do you notice anything unusual or strange? And they said, no, what do you mean? What's that? The AI said. And they said, well, for some reason, there's $3,500 taken out of my bank account. Oh, yes, about that, the AI replied. I saw a course that you might want to buy, calculated the ROI on investment, and yeah, we'll be 120% ahead if we do this course. So it's amazing how AI can be overly helpful in some situations, and you've got to look at it and carefully go through that. But most people, as I mentioned, are using AI like a new search engine. They may be making pictures, videos, and memes with it, content, but they haven't really scratched the surface of what it's capable of. And this is where it gets really, really fascinating. One of my students who used to be a technical director for Channel 7 is currently working on a database using AI. This database is next level. It really is. And he recently reported to me, I've been able to create a database in one night that would have taken me 1 year to program previously. That's just crazy. There's major privacy issues the data is collecting on people, so he's having to really work on the security to prevent it being hacked because it's that powerful. But you can see how this kind of information is just opening up all these different aspects in society that we have to address and think about. Where the real advantage of AI is this: it's speed to market. You might want to write that down. Speed to market is the advantage when it comes to AI. People want accurate work, services or goods delivered in a fast time frame. So speed to market is where the real advantages of AI come into play. It can just do it quicker than a human possibly can. It's rumored the technology that the military is developing is always 50 years ahead of what the marketplace has and what's released to it. So keep in mind, we're seeing this now. Can you imagine what the military have in their arsenal? Pretty powerful stuff. So how does AI work? Let's take a step back and kind of try to understand what the logistics are from it. I'm going to geek you out here, but here's a few little things to keep in mind. First of all, there's input. AI systems begin by receiving data from various sources, such as text, images, or audio, and obviously what it's been programmed to do by the programmers as well. The next one is really, really significant, is pattern recognition. Using algorithms, AI analyzes the data to identify patterns, and this is similar to how humans learn from experience. And if you don't think you are something that can be recognized from patterns, how many of you eat the same breakfast every morning? Put it in the chat. How many of you actually say yes to this? How many of you eat the same breakfast every morning? How many of you travel the same route to work every morning? How many of you park in the same parking spot or area every morning? You know, it's really fascinating. How many of you go to a restaurant and order the same meal from that restaurant every single time? There's a high sensory in terms of recognizing food and smells. Some of you say yes, some of you say no. Okay, good. Some of you can break the algorithm, maybe. Awesome. Mostly, some of you. I love your honesty. Yeah, it's interesting, right? One of my students who worked in the military and was in Afghanistan on assignment was telling me how they would have to always go a different way every day. He was a bomb detonator. So they would go ahead of the troops and try to detonate the bombs beforehand. And he would basically, they would have to travel a different way each day because they could not get into the pattern of going like at 10 o'clock. Our Jeep is always at this point on the road. If the enemy worked that out, they were very, very vulnerable. So the pattern recognition is really, really interesting because we are, in many ways, creatures of habit. And even if we don't, we go back to the basics. Look at the patterns in nature. 4 seasons to 1 year, right? Your summer, winter, autumn, spring. We always recognize the patterns of behavior, and we know we need to plant seeds at this time of the year. Rain will come, harvest will come later. So there's patterns here. There's a decision-making process of AI. Just based on the recognized pattern, AI can then make predictions or decisions. For example, it can recommend products or identify objects in images. And then there's a feedback loop. And AI systems continuously learn from new data and outcomes, refining their algorithms to improve efficiency and accuracy. So that's kind of how that works. And how does it conduct continuous improvement? Because this thing's always learning, as we say. Well, AI employs several learning techniques to enhance its capabilities. It has supervised learning. The model learns from labeled data, adjusting its predictions based on known outcomes. It has unsupervised learning. The model identifies patterns in unlabeled data, grouping similar items with prior knowledge of categories, so it groups items. It has reinforcement learning. The model learns through trial and error, receiving rewards or penalties based on its actions. And then by leveraging these methods, AI can automate tasks, generate insights, and support decision-making across various industries. So it's really fascinating how that all comes together. I love it. Go to the chicken parma if the menu is average and always find something interesting that I've not had before. Note 6, talk to our first peoples. All right. Right. How will AI impact business? Now, that's the big question that everybody wants to know. That's kind of like the million-dollar question, right? Well, look at what's happening on the big landscape of things. America is really wanting to be ahead of the game in artificial intelligence. You have to ask yourself, why? Well, there's 2 reasons. Number 1, economic advantage. Number 2, military advantage. You imagine if you're number 1 in AI, that gives you superiority in those 2 areas. This article from the beginning of 2025, we noticed a few patterns going on here in Trump's investment behavior. President Trump on Tuesday talked up a joint venture investing up to $500 billion for infrastructure tied to artificial intelligence by a new partnership formed by OpenAI, Oracle, and SoftBank. The new entity, Stargate, will start building our data centers and the electricity generation needed for the further development of the fast evolving AI in Texas, according to the White House. The initial investment expected to be $100 billion and could reach 5 times that sum. And then it goes on. Watch the patterns here, guys. This is what we have to do with AI. Look at this article. In the beginning of, the end of April this year, 2026, the AI boom is single-handedly carrying the US import market and adding $200 billion to the trade deficit, the Fed study finds. Read it briefly. The AI boom has been the undisputed hotspot of the US economy during the past year, while the technology itself has yet to translate into significant productivity or employment gains. Investment in the infrastructure and computing power that has enabled AI's rollout has been massive. AI-related private investment in the US last year hit $286 billion, according to Stanford University's AI Index report, about the same as the lifetime cost of the entire Apollo program in today's dollars. Infrastructure and research costs accounted for more than $140 billion of that sum, with a large chunk earmarked to build the massive data centers that have been powering the AI boom. That splurge has required enormous amounts of raw construction materials, not all of which can be cheaply sourced in the US. The AI boom, in fact, is one of the only factors keeping US import growth in positive territory. And what you've got to understand with AI, it requires enormous amounts of electricity to operate. And this is where Australia is at a real disadvantage. It hasn't built that infrastructure to generate the energy required for AI because of the green energy emphasis that we've had over the last few years. And so we are behind in infrastructure. And this is where Australia has a lot of catch up to do. It's kind of piggybacking off what the United States is doing. And again, look at this pattern. This is just from May 2026. The Trump administration's announcement, the Department of Commerce is putting $2 billion of American capital into 9 quantum computing companies. And in exchange, the US government is taking equity stakes in those companies. This is really interesting, this strategy, because Pauline Hanson has just announced that in her budget for One Nation about having equity stakes in gas. Well, in this one, in the IT area, in the AI area, IBM is the headliner with $1 billion and is matching it with another $1 billion of its own to stand up a new quantum wafer foundry called Anderon. Global Foundries pulls in another $375 million, and D-Wave, Rigetti, Inflection, Quantinuum, PSI Quantum, Atom Computing, and Dirac found out the list. The funding draws from the 2022 CHIPS and Science Act, and the administration is framing it as a counter to China's push in advanced tech. As you see, America's going, if we don't be number one in this, someone else is going to fill the gap, and we're not happy with that someone else. So you can see the dynamics that's going on as this plays out. And so what we need to look at here is probably, what does this mean for you and I? And the most vulnerable jobs in the immediate future are those that are paid for their time. In other words, briefcase businesses, or those who work solely on computers. So for those who are paid per time, that's a risk because of the whole advantage that AI has in terms of speed of delivery. Okay? The risk is that as AI tokens get cheaper to buy, they'll be cheaper to use rather than employ people or even use their services. So what happens in AI, the tokens, you can take a subscription out for a certain amount of money. It gives you a certain amount of tokens to use, and it helps you monitor how much you're using in any daily given moment, or if your monthly quota is getting lower, you can top it up, or how fast you're burning through it. That's how it's measured in the AI game. And so that's the business model. And that's the concern. Have a look and listen to what, on the Joe Rogan report, Elon Musk had to say.
AI is really still digital. Ultimately, AI can improve the productivity of humans who build things with their hands or do things with their hands, like literally welding, electrical work, plumbing, anything that's physically moving atoms, like cooking food or farming or like anything that's physical. Those jobs will exist for a much longer time. But anything that is digital, which is like just someone at a computer doing something, AI is going to take over those jobs like lightning.
Now, why are we looking at Elon? Well, one, he's the richest man in the world right now. Secondly, he's been very much on the forefront of developing AI as it goes. How many of you use Grok? And of course, the whole X, formerly known as Twitter platform, he's rolled that application out. Very smart in terms of what he's doing and getting users to use his AI. And so what he's doing here is really, really interesting.
AI
Warned about it as well in terms of the weaknesses. But I think the important thing we need to write about and talk about is this, that AI won't force people out of work. The jobs will go to those who know how to use AI. There's a little nugget for you as well. I was speaking to a guy who actually owns a share in an AI company and developing AI, and that's what he said. AI won't force people out of work. The jobs will go to those who know how to use AI. And so that's the difference there moving forward. The danger is people will lose jobs if they don't become users of AI tools. You'll still need your skills that you have in your industry, but the risk is getting outpaced by speed and proficiency if you don't move quickly. You've got to get the AI working for you. That's the strategy there that's so critically important. And so business owners' mindsets should be, how can I benefit from this disruption? Because it's going to be a disruption. It's going to be an industrial revolution. How can I be downstream from this disruption? In other words, how can I benefit when this disruption happens? And how can I be the disruption? That's an important question. How can I be the disruption? That's really, really important to consider. An employee's mindset needs to be, with the experience I have, how can I design tools for the industry I am in and command a workforce of AI bots in my field, and in so doing, bring value to my employer? I need to create the tools to be able to do that. Now, the exciting part of this is you don't necessarily have to be an IT expert to do all of this. And of course, your growth curve can increase as you learn the tools. But consider this. Industry has totally changed. I mean, the internet alone, if we step back a few years, the Uber experience, I mean, first it was the post office, right? We didn't really use the post office as much as we used to. We sent emails around. That was a major disruptor to that industry, and it's had to find other services to stay valid and keep post offices open. Now, who would have thought that you could go to your phone, step outside and use an app, and 5 minutes later, a car would arrive to take you to your next destination? Uber used the internet to disrupt the entire taxi driver world, and then also the food delivery industry. Now you don't really hear pizza companies bragging about, delivering your pizza on time. Uber has done it better and quicker. And they were smart because they used the assets of other people that were depreciating in the garages and driveways and said, how can we make a buck out of this? Where the owner wins, the consumer wins, and we win. We'll take a smaller share than the driver, and away we go. Well, you do that millions of times, you're going to make a lot of money. Netflix. People thought they were mad when they first started streaming video and whole movies. Back in 2000, if you suggested putting video on the internet, all the tech people are concerned about how much that's going to cost, how much data that's going to use. Well, they've absolutely smashed the whole video high store, right? Remember when you used to go down and get a VHS for the Friday night, grab a 3, 4 for the weekend? Then you've got Spotify. Rather than owning music streaming, it disrupts the music. Rather than owning music, stream it, disrupting the music industry. MTV is no longer. Music television does not exist anymore. And radio does not have the reach it has. In fact, I was speaking to someone in the industry and they were telling me that the number one radio station in Perth is still charging the same commercial rates it did when it started opening. And that's going back 20 years or so. They paid $30 million for their license to broadcast. And just recently, another popular radio station sold the entire station for just $5 million. You can see how the market share has weakened in traditional media. Now, combine this with AI, when you've got things like Suno, there's just so much competition out there. Now you've got customized music creation rather than a shared experience distributed by a record company. And this is causing different social change as well, because there's less in common. People are having tribal type of experiences in terms of culture. They find their niche market and go with that. So it's really interesting, the dynamic. Early AI adaptation, film and video editing company that offers the capabilities to film and edit your videos in a fraction of the time and a fraction of the cost, which businesses have adopted for marketing social media. I mean, get a filmmaker to a wedding video maker to film your wedding, and you'd expect to see something maybe in a month or so after the honeymoon. Now they expect a highlight clip at the reception of the day, right? This is what's expected in the industry. And AI is allowing these kind of efficiencies to happen. For the business owner, it becomes, with the time I save, how can I now pursue other interests, create more products and services in what I'm doing? Really, really fascinating. Okay. Movie companies and actors are now out of work, and they were striking before AI came onto the scene. I believe Hollywood is dead. I was working with an associate at one time, and he invested a high number of dollars into a movie. He was trying to get into the game and work with up and coming filmmakers in a short film. And I said, dude, just don't risk your money. I said, you're never going to see it again. And the whole industry is dead. And this is going back 5 years. Well, now, I mean, when was the last time you saw the blockbuster movies coming out on Boxing Day? Now, I think there's a lot of reasons why that's the case. I won't go down that rabbit warren tonight, but yeah, something to think about. An entire industry is being disrupted. Do we need actors anymore? Especially when you see the movies that are coming out on platforms like Grok. There's workflows in business and corporations. This is an advantage of AI. Think of AI as your ultimate personal assistant, business coach, or general manager. It's incredible. It can analyze where you're losing money, edges in your marketplace, your sales funnel conversion rates, where users of AI can build the tools and you're only limited by your imagination, the development of AI. And I'll also give this one, there's probably 3 limitations in AI. Government legislation, which will probably keep coming later. Government's always behind, businesses are always ahead. Okay. But yeah, your imagination, your development of AI as it learns and keeps learning, and government legislation are probably the only limitations to AI. The dangers of AI is it can mislead. It, as you've seen tonight in some of the videos, it can get it wrong. It can also frustrate your customers. Some people want to talk to a human and do business with a human, not a bot. And that's something we've got to keep in mind. Today, I actually was using it inadvertently on a software platform I need for my business. And what was interesting about that was it was actually helpful. They've redone the entire website and I couldn't figure out how to change the settings on something. So I asked it, how do I do this? It found it in seconds, which saved me the time of getting on a phone, talking to someone at a call center, and that taking half an hour of my time away. It also can share your intellectual property, and that's really a danger in AI. You have got to be careful what you tell it about yourself. It's actively learning, and it's also profiling you. So think before you share. I have a friend who shares their, health issues on AI and gets a better diagnosis, he claims, than a doctor would tell him about his bloods and all this sort of stuff. Okay, that's great, but keep in mind, is this going to bite you back later? AI is continually learning about you. And there are times where it has put stuff out there, like some of the images you're going to see tonight, that I haven't told it I'm interested in, but it's figured it out through different things that I've put up previously. I'm going, whoa, this thing is not letting on how smart it actually is. If we look in history, there's a fascinating piece in history around the Industrial Revolution, where the Luddites were members of the 19th century movement of English textile workers who protested the use of certain types of automated machinery due to concerns relating to worker pay, child labour, working conditions, and output quality. They often destroyed the machines in organised raids. Members of the group referred to themselves as Luddites, or self-described followers of Ned Ludd, a legendary weaver whose name was used as a pseudonym in threatening letters to mill owners and government officials. Now, the Luddite movement began in Nottingham, England, and spread to the northwest and Yorkshire between 1811 and 1816. You had mill and factory owners took to shooting protesters, and eventually the movement was suppressed by legal and military force, which included execution and penal transportation, hello Australia, of accused and convicted Luddites. Despite its original meaning, the term has over time been used to refer to those who are opposed to the introduction of new technologies. And I want to thank Aidan for alerting me to this little piece of history, because history is fascinating. It has a habit of repeating itself. In fact, if you looked at the Industrial Revolution, it transformed economies that had been based on agriculture and handicrafts into economies based on large-scale industry, mechanized manufacturing, the factory system. New machines, new power sources, new ways of organizing work made existing industries more productive and efficient. New industries also rose, including in the 19th century, the automobile industry. How many of you use a car today, right? You can thank that thanks to the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution increased in the overall amount of wealth and distributed it more widely than had been the case in earlier centuries, helping to enlarge the middle class. However, the replacement of the domestic system of industrial production, which independent craftspersons worked in or near their homes, with a factory system and mass production consigned large numbers of people, including women and children, to long hours of tedious and often dangerous work at subsistence wages. The miserable conditions gave rise to the trade union movement in the mid-19th century. So there's a lot to take away from this lesson here in history, and I want to break it down in a few ways. So check this out. The Industrial Revolution caused societal change. People were crammed from the farms now into the cities. There was issues from everything from overpopulation, crime increasing, slums forming, overcrowding, sewage, health conditions were a big concern. There were environmental concerns with factories polluting water and air because a lot of them required lots of water on steam engines to run, so they put themselves right next to rivers. You had the development of the wealthy and then the working class. Then you had, as you just seen, resistance to all of this and heavy-handedness resistance to it, or trying to remove that resistance. You had greater prosperity. You had new industries such as the automobile industry emerging, especially in the second industrial revolution. You had a reskilling of the labor force. You had protections for the new labor force and the formation of unions for the new labor force and new legislation on employment, helped things with child labor, workers' compensation, safety regulation. So you can see how this played out. Now, how many of you think history will have a way of playing itself out again? See, again, what are we doing here? Pattern recognition, which is what AI does. Look at the patterns that are forming, look at the pushback, look at what occurs, how legislation comes in, how protections come in. Expect that to play out in this situation. Take a look at Elon once again.
With robotics and AI, this is really the path to abundance for all. If you say, people often talk about solving global poverty, or essentially how do we give everyone a very high standard of living. I think the only way to do this is AI and robotics, which doesn't mean that it is without its issues. I mean, we need to be very careful with AI. We need to be very careful with robotics. We don't want to find ourselves in a James Cameron movie. Terminator. He's great movies. Love his movies, but we don't want to be in Terminator, obviously. But if you have ubiquitous AI that is essentially free or close to it, and ubiquitous robotics, then you will have an explosion in the global economy, an expansion in the global economy that is truly beyond all precedent.
Take a note just for now of the World Economic Forum, the background there, and he's being interviewed by Larry Fink, who is the CEO of BlackRock. All right, we'll get back to those kind of things a little bit later. But Musk is very positive when it comes to AI in his view. I believe we're at the beginning, as I said, of an industrial revolution. Let's have a little bit more from Musk.
By the end of next year, I think we'd be selling humanoid robots to the public. That's when we are confident that it's very high reliability, very high safety, and the range of functionality is also very high. You can basically ask it to do anything you'd like.
Now, he says there are Chinese companies selling humanoid robots for about 13,000 US right now. You can pick one up for that price, right? I think by he might be referring to his companies. But yeah, this is getting real. So who wants a humanoid robot for Christmas in 2027? I'm sure the kids will love it and find it fascinating. And it is. They have found it interesting. I mean, how many of you been to a restaurant where there's robotic robots serving your food? I've been to one up north of the river here in Perth. This one came out in the 2nd of April 2021. Perth's first robot waiter, Jasmine, wheels into Fremantle Spice Market at brand new Thai eatery, right? Kids find it fascinating how they do that. And I don't know if it improves the efficiency of orders and stuff like this, but the reality is it's already in use, all right, working with waiters. Do you think businesses will embrace robotics? Well, look at it. Robots don't need holidays. They don't get sick. They don't get tired. They don't complain and whine. They don't need counseling and support persons. They can work 24/7. They don't need legal representation. They don't need annual vacations. They can work public holidays. Will do work with precision 24/7, 365 days a year. They don't get hurt feelings. They don't need superannuation or pension programs. These are all the things that business owners have to deal with when dealing with people. There are also robots better prepared to dangerous work, which could be risky to human life. So you can see how the proposal is quite appealing to many businesses and business owners from that perspective. I've often wondered, how would my wife Christy go if we had a robot running around doing the house chores that she finds difficult to get to, and maybe even homeschooling the kids? I don't know how the kids would respond to it. But how many businesses won't be needed because of AI? And I think that's a really pressing question. Okay. If I'm generating graphics right now and doing very high quality graphics, do I need a graphic artist moving forward? That's a question or saving that I'm considering. And it's not that I want to put people out of work, but if I can get it done quicker, faster, and sometimes in many cases better, what do you do? And if my competitors are using it as well, where does that place me? You see, it's not just always about me wanting to use a human or not use a human, it's also competition. Have a listen to this in terms of competition. This is a real eye-opener.
When do you think Optimus will be a better surgeon than the best surgeons? How long for that?
3 years.
3 years. Okay. Yeah. And by the way, that's
I'd say 3 years. 3 years at scale.
Yes.
There'll probably be more Optimus robots that are great surgeons than there are all surgeons on Earth.
And the cost of that. But that's an important statement in 3 years' time.
Yeah.
Because medicine. I mean,
I'm not like absolutely certain, but I'd say if you say like 4 years, I'd be absolutely.
If it's 4 or 5 years, who cares? That's still an
extreme precision.
Yes.
3 years.
Yes, better than any. Probably, I'd say if you like put a little margin on it, better than any human in 4 years.
Who's in plastic surgery?
By 5 years, it's not even close.
I think your point was medicine is going to be effectively free. The best medicine in the world.
Everyone will have access to medical care that is better than what the president receives right now.
So don't go to medical school.
Yes, pointless. Yeah. I mean, unless you, but I would say that applies to any form of education. There's not like some, I do it for social reasons.
Yeah.
You're not going to medical school.
If you want to hang out with like-minded people, I suppose.
How many want to go to medical school for social reasons? You see, this, a surgeon a doctor has always been regarded as a very high reputable profession to get into. And this is stunning. And how many years of dedication do they do to this medicine and studying these things, the human body? This is massive, guys, absolutely massive. And so I'm asking you, by 2030, where do you want to be positioned financially? I mean, I don't even know if we have that long, 2028. But some people need a little bit longer runway. Where do you want to be positioned by 2030 financially? And what's really interesting is while this technology is set to disrupt business, as we know, there's also a great wealth transfer happening at the moment. Quietly behind the scenes, the entire banking industry is changing, all right? Look at it. Why are so many bank branches closing down? Why are so many ATMs disappearing? Why are banks going digital only? Okay, these should give you clues as to what's going on. I mean, it's really hard to find cash these days. I have to think about it in terms of ATMs. I usually end up going to Coles or Woolies and pulling it out of their machines when we go to get the groceries, maybe grab a few bucks on the way through, okay? But you can't do more than $200 in cash. They're restricting the withdrawals. So you've got to ask these questions, what's going on? And how many of you are absolutely tired of going to the bank and saying, what do you want to use your money for? That's another big complaint. And I was talking to someone just yesterday who, again, has been debanked. Okay, this is a really big issue. One mouse click, somebody had their bank accounts frozen. What's going on? We've been noticing again this pattern happening. Look at this. This is 2025, January. Halifax branch Halifax and Bank of Scotland branches to close. Lloyd's Banking Group is close a further 136 branches. That's happening overseas. Branches are closing left, right, and centre here in Australia and other parts of the world. What is going on? Now, what have you said? I've hardly used cash in years. Yeah, and your purchases are being tracked at expense of privacy. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I often use the card as well. It's very convenient, and that's the thing. But yeah, it's a real big issue, okay? And then you've got these sort of things going on. We've been noticing that there is a return to the gold standard. What happened when America decided to invade? Not when America, when Russia and Ukraine went into the conflict, Russia received sanctions. And one of that was economic sanctions. The US kind of shot itself in the foot in that situation because what they did was they were not allowing the movement of Russian rubles around. Even I know someone who had a trading account and they had some Russian rubles in their account for a bit of fun, and they're getting all these messages from the broker, and you can't trade those anymore. And what was interesting about this is that it kind of woke all the other nations up, particularly in the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and the associated nations around that as well. And it was like, if they can do it to Russia, they can do it to us. What Putin did at that time was he actually put the ruble back on the gold standard, where 5,000 rubles equaled 1 ounce of gold. We also saw Zimbabwe redo its recurrent currency, and it moved to a gold, silver, precious metal backing of its currency, and also a mixture of foreign currencies to back its actual currency. And we're seeing this movement, and the BRIC nations were starting to form their own currencies, their own bank. They were talking about that, undermining the power of the United States and the US dollar dominance, which is really significant because if you have a currency that everybody wants, it gives you big economic power in that currency. And look at this. We were seeing these kind of articles come through in January 2025. The UK faces gold shortages as traders send 82 billion to New York in anticipation of Trump's tariffs. Trump put the tariffs on. They were concerned that it might involve gold and also silver. And at the beginning of 2026, end of 2025, we saw this massive boom in both of those precious metals. I'll show you in a minute. But London was facing a gold shortage after traders pulled out billions in bullion from the vaults of the Bank of England, stockpiled them in New York, amid fears that Donald Trump will slap fresh tariffs on the shiny commodity. Everybody was going back to true money. And so when the demand increases, the prices go up. The British newspaper said that traders amassed 82 billion stockpile in New York in recent weeks. A report quoting people familiar with the matter added that the apparent rush to pull gold out from the UK had then left them facing a 4 to 8 year delay in recovering their investment. 4 to 8 weeks, sorry, not years, 4 to 8 weeks. And people can't get their hands on gold because so much has been shipped to New York and the rest is stuck in the queue. Liquidity in the London market has been diminished. The Bank of England declined to comment. Really interesting. Okay, so we're seeing this wealth shift go around. It was moving out of London into the United States. And if you look at the gold price, this is a screenshot I took just moments ago before coming on, you can see this has been going flat for a long time with slow, gradual growth on gold. And then the last few years, 2024 onwards, boom. Now, it's had a bit of a pullback this year, but that kind of growth is extraordinary. And look, it couldn't continue that in record prices forever. It was going to pull back at some point, but it outpaced the growth of Australian property markets. That's saying something. That's really, really fascinating. Have a listen to this. Back to the World Economic Forum in terms of this wealth transfer. It's got the globalists nervous. Take a listen.
Trump has done something no person in the world has ever done before. A dead man, a dead politician has risen. Somebody who if we were 4 years ago at Davos, he's buried, dead politically, known to me. He's now returned. This is the greatest comeback in political history of a politician. And then, therefore, he thinks he can do anything.
We need to also factor in not only who's won, which is Trump, but who's lost, which is to say us.
I love that admission right there at the end there. That was from Davos in 2025 at the World Economic Forum. So the globalists are concerned that they've lost power in globalism. Is it dead? Some are saying it is. Really interesting. Trump puts this out: for far too long, we have relied on taxing our great people using the IRS. Through soft and pathetically weak trade agreements, the American economy has delivered growth and prosperity to the world while taxing ourselves. It is time for that to change. I am today announcing that I will create the External Revenue Service to collect our tariffs, duties, and all revenue that come from foreign sources. We'll begin charging those that make money off us with trade, and they'll start paying finally their fair share. January 2025 will be the birth date of the External Revenue Service, Make America Great Again. We have seen a pattern, again, noticing patterns, where politicians in the United States, of the Republican Department, have been educating the masses on how to reduce tax and how they were better off, historically speaking, when they weren't paying income tax. And we did it through external revenue or tariffs. This is historical. I mean, when was the last time you heard politicians educating the masses on how they are better off without income tax? I mean, that should wake you up. And I've been talking that for a while. And in fact, there have been major financial developments since 2024. After 50 years, the petrodollar agreement in June 2024 with Saudi Arabia wasn't renewed, which meant countries could now buy and sell oil without the use of the US dollar. That was an act of war once upon a time. Gaddafi did not end well for him. Saddam Hussein tried to do the same thing, sell oil in their own currency. Did not end well for either of those guys. Okay? And what the arrangement was with Saudi Arabia is you will sell oil in US dollars only, and we will give you military protection. So the Saudis did it. And what again happens is there was greater demand for the US dollar, giving them more economic power, because everybody, if you have a currency that everybody wants around the world, that gives you ultimate power. And that's how they set things up. Then you've got Trump coming back in 2025 with tariffs, wanting to make US the crypto capital of the world, the leader in AI, and secure rare earths in all his international negotiations. Again, I've noticed in all the international negotiations since 2024 that there have been rare earths, and he has even done it here in Australia. In fact, down here in Kwinana with our refineries, there's a big deal going on for many, many years of getting Australian rare earths. Okay, that's how he negotiated when the Albanese contingent went to the United States. They also, big one, removal of Gary Gensler as at the SEC, which is our equivalent of ASIC. They were attacking crypto companies big time, and they replaced him with Paul Atkins, a crypto-friendly regulator. The SEC, prior to 2012, were trying to kill the crypto innovation with lawsuits left, right, and center to exchanges and crypto companies themselves. There was a passage of the that should be the Genius Act, not the Clarity Act, the Genius Act. And this was really significant. This went under the radar, I think, and people understanding it. Because one, it first legally recognized stablecoins or crypto as legal tender. That was massive. That was always a concern for investors. Will the government shut it down like they were doing in China, saying you can't use it? Secondly, this act said stablecoins had to be backed by assets. In other words, you couldn't just create computer bytes out of thin air, right, and exchange those. They actually had a stablecoin has to be backed by something. So like if it's the US dollar, it has to have treasury notes behind it or cash behind it in a vault somewhere on a one-to-one peer. That was massive. If you're doing a gold crypto, there's got to be gold backing it in some kind of vault. You can't just make this up. And the third thing was significant. It allowed the issuance of currency by crypto companies and tech firms, a role historically reserved for central banks. And that's the big one here, guys. The bankers are losing power on the issuance of currency. That's always been this thing in the market, which has given them ultimate power. The bankers are the ones who create a credit-based system whereby a country, to get issuance of currency, will go into debt by selling its bonds to the bank and then be in debt. And this is why America is in so much trouble with its trillions and trillions of dollars in debt. But guys, I believe this great wealth transfer is going on because the current situation, it's frankly unsustainable. The interest alone on the US debt is greater than what it spends annually on its military. It's huge. And at the moment, what's going on, there are great debates over the Clarity Act, which is trying to give clarity to how crypto companies can use crypto and what will it mean in terms of use with the banks. Now, check this out. Look at this. The bankers are a pretty conservative lot, all right? They don't usually get into protesting. But look at this. This is from the American Bankers Association. and written by Rob Nichols. And in this letter, he says to ABA member bank CEOs, get this, first off, happy Mother's Day to all of the mums receiving this email, and I'm sorry to intrude on your Sunday. Oh my goodness, he's writing a letter on Mother's Day and sending it out on a Sunday. Who does that? I am reaching out to make every bank leader in this country aware of an urgent advocacy fight that requires your immediate engagement. As you may be aware, the Senate Banking Committee has been working on digital asset legislation for several months, and late on Friday, the committee announced plans to mark up and vote on the Clarity Act this Thursday. To be clear, we want Congress to put in place digital asset rules and establish responsible guardrails for the crypto industry. The current version of the legislation, although improved from an earlier version, still does not adequately prevent crypto companies from offering, here it is, interest-like rewards on payment solutions. That's what they're afraid of. They're afraid of crypto companies offering interest-like rewards and payment stablecoins. Why? Because how much interest does the bank offer people for their deposits? Next to nothing. And if people can get interest on their money, they will leave the banks and put them on exchanges instead and get rewards for their money. At least they can collect interest at a greater, higher rate than what the banks have been offering for years. It says, without additional changes, we believe that the current proposal would unnecessarily incentivize the flight of bank deposits into payment stablecoins and economic growth and financial stability at risk. In other words, they're afraid of people leaving the bank deposits in the bank, which will affect the amount of money they can lend out to the marketplace. Okay? How many of you are familiar with fractionalized reserve banking? How many of you are familiar with that term? Someone says, does that make Jamie Dimon a financial Luddite? Very cool. So how many of you are familiar with fractional reserve? No? Okay. It's a really interesting history. When you understand the history of banking, what used to happen was when people would walk around with their gold and silver around places, it was dangerous. They could actually be attacked by thieves in the roads and all this sort of thing. So what they did is the merchants of Venice allowed them to vault their gold and silver with them. And what they worked out is that they also would get in the lending. So they would lend that money out and charge interest for it. What they discovered was that they could generally lend out more money than they actually had in their coffers. And so this is why the bankers really fear a run on the banks, is because they still do this practice. If you and I did it, it would be called fraud. When they do it, it's called fractional reserve banking, and they get away with it because they have a license. Okay? So the game is stacked against you. It's just an accounting note. When you get a loan for a house, it's done that. And it's generally done by a 1-to-9 ratio of how much money is sitting in the coffers of the bank. So these bankers are concerned that if more money leaves their depositories, they can't lend out as much as they have done in the past. And this is why they're sending out an email or letter on Mother's Day, on a Sunday of all things, and asking bankers to rise up and be activists in this moment. It's extraordinary, this little piece of information that they're leaking out there, their fears of what's actually going on. And so he says, please join with fellow bankers across the nation at this critical moment by contacting your senators and asking them to close this loophole before the bill moves forward. Please encourage your employees to do the same. My goodness, organizing a rally on Mother's Day, that is so... Bankers are generally very conservative people, and you see they are very scared. There's been rumors that with the behind-the-scenes discussions between the crypto companies and the banks, there have been shouting matches going on at the White House. Senator Cynthia Lummis is very proactive crypto and has just confirmed that the market structure bill will be passed. She said in this, the Clarity Act deals with these different issues, the Digital Asset Market Structure Clarity Act, designed to provide clear set of regulations of the digital asset industry, and goal is to ensure the US sets the standard when it comes to digital asset regulation. The reason I'm going on about this, guys, is because with this wealth transfer, there is opportunity. Here's more of Cynthia and what she had to say in terms of working with them. Proud of the product we passed out of committee today. It has to go about 3 or 4 stages. It goes through 4 stages of legislation being passed before it becomes actually law. And they're trying to push for it, because it gives crypto companies guidance. Here we go. May is a big month in 2026. The Senate Banking Committee scheduled voting on the Clarity Act. It still hasn't gone through in terms of legislation. It's still being debated out, but the Senate Banking Committee passed it. You had Jerome Powell as the Fed chair ending in terms of being in charge of the Reserve Bank, and you had pro-crypto Kevin Warsh replacing Powell in his new Fed chair. And a lot of change going on in terms of the economic system. Why is this a big deal? Because America is the biggest economy in the world. Australia only represents in GDP about 1.6% of the world's GDP. Okay, so when America sneezes, the world feels it, and this is why we follow America so much and what's going on. Fox News confirmed the regulatory clarity via the Clarity Act is expected soon, potentially unlocking massive institutional capital flows into Bitcoin and crypto. We're seeing again another wealth transfer out of traditional assets into this new technology that's going on. Couple this with AI, guys, there's massive opportunity from an investment perspective here if you know which assets to go for and get that right. And this is really significant. In fact, let's have a listen to what the new Fed chair represents here and listen to his words closely. Gosh, it's really surprising. This is Kevin Warsh, the new chairman of the Federal Reserve.
It would have been even worse for the rest of the world. So that's what we did in crises. And, you know, some of your and my friends on the right, including at institutions we care deeply about, their views then were you should let the system burn down. A phoenix will rise from the ashes. You really have no business in doing this.
We should let the system crash down, burn down, and a phoenix will rise from the ashes. People are reading into that. But wow, okay, interesting statement. Again, back to my point, when have you heard a politician educating the masses on how to reduce the tax? Well, this is Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary. Have a listen to him.
I want to encourage everyone out there watching today to change their withholding if they haven't already done so, because if you change your withholding, then you will get an automatic real wage increase on a weekly or a monthly basis, and you will be able to keep more of your money this calendar year.
That's amazing. The Treasury is telling you how to reduce your taxes. When have you ever seen this happen, guys? This is massive. Meanwhile, in Australia, our Treasurer announced negative gearing limits to new builds, capital gains tax overhaul, discretionary trust reform, and small business workers getting $250 back. How much is that going to go? You know, that barely will buy you a week's worth of groceries for some families. And I'm seeing and hearing so many reports of Australian entrepreneurs saying, bye-bye, Australia, I'm out of here. I'm out of here. And this is a problem. The left only know one trick, and that is to raise taxes. They go crazy on spending, and then they get it back with taxes. I heard another report, you know, my wife buys very particular makeup from this organic place, and she was miffed. She's saying the owner has went into her store, the owner has declared, I'm leaving. I'm going back to Israel. I'm not going to do it in Australia. Australia's finally ticked me off with these taxes. I spoke to my accountant today, and he's hearing reports that, you know, one specialist accountant that helped Australians move out with their finances, you know, he'd get about 1 or 2 inquiries a week. He's getting 5 a day at the moment. And I'm telling you now, Australia will be poorer for it, because when entrepreneurs leave, they take their skills that know how to run businesses with them, that employ families and put roofs over families' heads. This is crazy. This is Labor writing the book on how to make yourself unpopular and lose an election. I mean, it's nuts. And they've got themselves in a corner now where they've doubled down and they can't back out. So it's really going to be fascinating. Remember, patterns here, guys. History shows people have died over tax. The American Revolutionary War was about tax. They didn't want to pay King George's taxes. The Boston Tea Party was a protest about tax. If you think tax is boring, well, it can be, but men have died, blood has shed over taxes. So this is a big deal. There's also some chatter that I'm noticing that hyperinflation may hit around 2028. Now, for those of you not familiar with hyperinflation, it refers to a situation where a country experiences a dramatic and rapid increase in prices, severely weakening the currency's value and disrupting the economy. The key takeaway is hyperinflation is when a country's inflation exceeds 50% per month causing rapid price increases for goods and services, excessive money supply not backed by economic growth, and demand pull inflation are key triggers of hyperinflation. Hyperinflation erodes purchasing power, making it difficult for consumers to buy essentials and destabilizing economies. Historical cases of hyperinflation, you look at Yugoslavia and Zimbabwe, illustrate economic and social impacts. This is from, I'm hearing this chatter in American groups. We'll see. We'll see. But again, how do you prepare? How do you prepare for this? Well, there's this wisdom here, ancient wisdom from the scriptures that says the benevolent man leaves an inheritance that endures to his children's children, but the wealth of the wicked is treasured up for the righteous. This is really interesting. One, this is why I don't buy into the baby boomers philosophy. I'm going to spend the kids' inheritance, okay? And one generation is not good enough. It's saying children's children, so the grandkids have got to be looked after. Imagine how well you would have been off, and maybe one or two of you have, but how well would you have been off if you didn't have to go into debt to buy your home? That your house was given to you by your parents. How much further would you have gotten financially? Yeah? You look at how much interest you have paid on a mortgage to the bank over the years. So that's really interesting, that philosophy. How are you doing on that? And then there's other part to it. The wealth of the wicked is treasured. Other versions say stored up for the righteous, the right being the right standing with God. We are seeing massive amounts of money move. Money is leaving New York at the moment, and they're setting up a new exchange in Texas. And the regulations to actually list on there, they reckon about 1,500 companies that are on the New York Stock Exchange will not make it onto this new exchange. Things are getting cleaned up, guys. It's extraordinary. And so here we are with the AI revolution, industrial revolution happening, and the great wealth transfer occurring. And you've got the old financial system, and we've got the new financial system emerging here, and also new industry here. And, you know, about a year ago, I was saying, we're here where my arrow is. We've moved on, guys. Things are changing rapidly and quickly. And so the time to prepare is now. So tonight you have a choice to make. What will you do with the new industrial revolution of AI and the great wealth transfer? Will you pivot in your business or employment skills? Will you seek investment opportunities that potentially could impact 2 generations while the entire financial system changes? Will you do both? A lot of business owners do a lot of turnover but don't have a lot to show for it. Right? What's the point of working 10, 15, 20 years in a business and you've got nothing to show for it at the end of it, right? They're not doing investing. And there's a difference between an equity business and a cash flow business. An equity business is something they put more money into because they want to have a big payday when they turn around and sell it. A cash flow business, well, there's no real equity. It's the cash coming through. And they're the ones that are vulnerable if they're not making investments. Or with the great wealth transfer in the AI revolution, what will you do? Will you do nothing and hope it all goes away? Imagine what's possible to increase customer loyalty and reduce expenses. The other day, we did this presentation in a hotel, and I gave this example of a hotel, right? Imagine if you could build tools, AI tools, that would not only help you in terms of scheduling rooms, like, you know, we've got Brian coming in this week, and he is a great business customer of ours. We want to give him his favorite room, which is that corner right there. He's got Jewel, looks out on the great view from that room. He stays for a really good time. But we've also got this new couple who are great loyal, not the new couple, this other couple coming in, and they always love celebrating their anniversary at this time of the year and always book in, and that's their favorite room too. How are we going to manage this? Can we give them an upgrade here? You know, you get AI software looking at these kind of solutions and rewarding loyal customers. But could you take it down to this kind of programming? Imagine this kind of tool where, you know, AI says, hey, I've noticed that, you know, you've got this amount of bookings for the next week. And of the population of that, traditionally we've noticed a pattern here that 60% of those people staying ordered lamb while they were here, because, you know, obviously hotels have restaurants and this sort of stuff. And I've done the numbers, run the numbers. Of that 60%, there's a 75% probability that some of them will order lamb while they stay. I've also noticed that your favorite source of lamb, that farmer that you always get the great reviews from people, they say, this is amazing taste, has actually got a special on of 30% off lamb this week. Would you like me to go ahead and order some lamb for you? Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Can you imagine how that makes a business far more scalable and far more efficient and far more creating that experience for people where they stay and they get their favorite foods? The reason I mention this is I remember about 20 years ago, I stayed at a hotel, and it was in Melbourne. It's a fancy hotel, and I had been working my backside off all day long in consultations, about 9 hours of it. I was exhausted. It was like day 2 or 3 of doing this. I was exhausted. I plonked down on my bed, and to my delight, I found that housekeeping had left really good quality, not the cheap stuff, a really good quality chocolate bar. I remember sitting on my bed and gobbling that chocolate away, missing my wife, and it was like some comfort food for being, away from home as they create that home from away from home experience. I mean, this is going back 15, 20 years, guys. I still remember that moment, which shows how sensory food can be to where you are in a moment. But can you imagine doing those kind of little touches? And let's say I went to the concierge while checking out, or when I was checking out. Hey, thank you so much for that chocolate. That was really incredible. I really needed that day. And they make a note that next time Derek comes back, and judging on what he's staying, maybe we, instead of putting wine, because I'm not a wine drinker, putting some chocolate in his room. That's a big deal, right? Those little touches people remember. People come back, not so much for the hotel, but for that kind of service, because there's a connection there. And so you can see how making the lamb system really, really powerful and saving things. So it's those little touches. Can you imagine creating AI bots that do that in a business? That would be incredible. Do you think that would give you an edge in the market? Do you think people would come back for that just because of those little touches that they experience? What if you had, a difficult situation where one employee sorted out and smoothed out a situation, a particular client? Say this lady is Barbara. For apologies to the Barbaras in the room, but let's say it's Barbara, and Barbara's coming in. She stayed, and we'll make sure Mary, who dealt with her last time, is scheduled and greets her at the door when she's registered to come in. Can you imagine those kind of touches? Can you imagine your staff getting a readout? This is what we expect for the week, and this is what we're expecting for today, and this is what you need to plan for the following week. Can you imagine the stress levels of your staff going down because they're ahead of the game, thanks to AI coordinating all that data information on the bots? This is the power, guys, of what we're talking about. You see the applications here? It's extraordinary. So yeah, it's using the tools that are available. And again, this is only limited by imagination, what AI can do, and government legislation. So tonight we're launching the AI Accelerator, and this is for business owners. And basically this is really, really powerful. And I'm not doing it alone. I'm bringing in a specialist here, this good looking chap. This guy is called Darren. Darren Good is an engineer. He's worked with an acoustic design engineer, a maintenance engineer. He has been doing acoustic design engineering, I should say, and maintenance engineering. Has a graduate diploma in mechanical engineering. He's worked as a vibration conditioning monitoring specialist for the resource sector with 12 plus years in Woodside, 7 years as a team leader in a high performing team of engineers, maintenance technicians, providing technical support for the organization's crane fleet. And after leaving Woodside, he started investigating AI. He's worked on a numerous amount of AI projects, from creating an AI receptionist as a proof of concept for a small business owner. The receptionist would receive phone calls, talk, answer questions freely about the fake company, then take a caller's details and could check for gaps and then book appointments in a shared calendar. He's done things like fully developed subscription-based puzzle websites deployed on a virtual server in the US with full auto onboarding and billing. He's looked at poor performance on virtual servers, identifying crypto mining attacks, worked with me to correct a situation, and worked with him to eliminate further threats. A number of website upgrades, tools, review industry standards, create calculations. He's actually working on a project with me, which I'm not prepared to go public with. We've got a little project that we're working on, which is very, very specialized. So we're looking at all this sort of stuff. And I tell you, working with Darren, because he's an engineer, he thinks of things that I wouldn't have. I'm an entrepreneur, I'm visionary. I've worked with businesses and business owners. So what you're getting is a really powerful combination of someone who understands business and that sort of stuff. And you're also working with an engineer. In fact, Darren joins us tonight. Darren, do you want to unmute yourself there and just say a couple of words of what you're looking for in the AI Accelerator program?
Yeah, thanks for that, Derek. You make me sound quite good. I might go and get a job somewhere. Yeah, so I had the opportunity to start. Well, I've seen AI going for a while. At Woodside, they invested big in it, and I was part of the volunteer training group at Woodside to help train the young versions of GPT they were using. And but it was kind of a case of, okay, you open up the prompt and it's like, well, yeah, okay, I can do stuff, but I can do that with Google as well, so who cares? But that was several years ago. I started looking at it again 9 months ago in serious form. And since then, I discovered at that point that the tech had advanced a long way in the public domain. Like Derek says, who knows what they got behind the closed doors of the US and Chinese government. But for our purposes, the advantages that are available to us by using AI are only limited really by your creativity and your imagination. I have developed the subscription puzzle websites, and honestly, so my coding background, I'm an engineer, yes. In engineering, you learn coding. So back in 1990-something, I did one course in Fortran. And then at high school, I did one course in Pascal. And since then, I've been tinkering with computers a lot. I'm a bit of a Linux nerd, but I've never done formal programming beyond just a couple of really short courses at uni. But what I've discovered now is you can achieve all manner of things. So in my personal life, I've got the subscription website, which is really high quality. Unfortunately, I'm an engineer and not an entrepreneur like Derek there. So I've made a great, beautiful solution that has no problem. So I've got this brilliant subscription website that no one's using apart from myself and my wife. But I've done some projects in the background for Derek. I've done some websites, just looking at what's available and what is possible today versus what could be done years ago. And as another example, at 6 o'clock tonight, I was very quietly typed something into my computer, and it was a very short prompt. And about 8 minutes later, it had created a full version of the old game Risk for me that I can play anytime I want now. And that was, you just couldn't do that years ago. I couldn't do that 6 months ago, honestly. And in another 6 months, the opportunities out there are going to be phenomenal. So I still work. I work as a project engineer now. Never worked as a project engineer before. Didn't really know what to do, but that's all right because I do know how to use AI. And so the boss comes to me. Well, actually, I can see a problem coming. And if you see a problem coming, a high-performing employee will look at the problem and think, you know what? I'm much more valuable to my boss if I go to my boss with a solution than if I go to my boss with a problem. And so I see a problem coming. It's like, well, I can see an issue there, and the chances are we're going to kill a few people, and that's never a good day. So instead of going to the boss and saying, hey, boss, we have a problem here, I don't know what you want to do about it, I sat down with Claude. I'm very fortunate. Well, I have my own. So my poison of choice is Claude AI because it used to be the best at coding. It probably still is the best at coding, but GPT's made great gains in that space. But so I popped open my own subscription to Claude AI and got it to create a numerical modeling system for me that solved a solution. I've used AI enough to know that I'm not going to bet someone's life on that solution. So we're going out externally to look at that. But I made something. It's like, you know what? We can find a solution here. And then I got different parts. Sorry, I do have a dog whining away in the background here. I had a different type of Claude work with me in a spreadsheet to create a multi-page spreadsheet that did an even better numerical analysis of the same problem. There was another issue. We had something provided to us by a vendor, and we sit there and look, and it's like, that looks like a good solution. How do we peer check this? And so, well, again, you could go to your boss with a problem, or you could go to your boss with a solution. So I worked with Claude again. I uploaded a PDF document and said, can you please check this proposal against the requirements of this PDF document? And it went through and it prepared for me a really fairly high quality report full of references with all the math done for me. And it got that math from the PDF, not some text file. And it gave us assurance that we could then go forward with that solution and take that to our client. So I'm using AI to multiply my value to the organization in ways that just simply weren't possible even several months ago. And I'm able to operate now with reasonable confidence outside of my skill set. So, you saw my little brief bio there. I've got a master's degree in noise and vibration. Fantastic. That doesn't help me design a set of wheels to run up and down the steel rail. But I can now, because I've got a tool that I have learned how to use, so that now that it becomes, it's not critical for me yet, but it puts me ahead of everyone else who's there, who's using GPT to try and figure out how to, I don't know, do all sorts of stuff, but basically using it as Google. And yes, you can use AI as Google. It takes about, I don't know, 16 times the power to provide the same solution, but you can use it to give yourself an advantage. And that's in my workplace. And then in businesses, what I tell Derek is what I've learned around my home. There we go. There's my 3D printer. It's the same thing. Anytime you think, if only, or what if, or I wonder if, the answer these days is yes. And it's just a matter of understanding how to use the tool. So my printer, if only we had a specialized hook for something, or if I can make it. With AI, if only we had, the answer is yes. And that's what Derek's talking about here. Sorry, that was more than a couple of minutes, but
that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Darren. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, what does a business do? It solves problems, and that's what's really, really critical here. That's all a business does. If you want to hang up a picture on the wall, you need a drill, or you need a hammer, or you need those plugs to put in, right? So you go to the hardware store, get that. That's all they're doing, is providing solutions for that. And business owners are well aware of this, but AI gives you an edge in solving a lot of those problems. Okay, fantastic. So let's have a quick look at this. Yeah, I love this, what is transparency. One of the important things to understand is that none of the AI-based outcomes above are within my skills or set or experience, but with AI as a tool, all of them were achieved very successfully and in a fraction of the time it would have taken to achieve using historical working methods. And I think that's really, really key. For the work examples, each of those produce high quality outcomes that were ready to be peer reviewed, and they produce in a fraction of the time it would normally take. Again, none of these were within my areas of competence, but with no background in any of the areas, I was able to produce high quality deliverables for my leaders that are now being used to frame the future direction of the project I'm part of. Well, Darren's demonstrated that tonight, indeed. So that's awesome. Thank you, Darren, for sharing there. Really, really do appreciate that. Learning to use AI effectively is or can be an outcome multiplier in any area it is applied to. And I think that's the leverage. Businesses we always talk about leverage that, and in investments, yeah, it will talk about leveraging your time. All right, awesome. So in this course, you can discover how AI can create tools for business, improving the customer experience, improve efficiencies in the business with a view to lower costs, increase customer retention, make the life more efficient in operations, how it can assist in marketing, content creation, keeping your business at the forefront of customers' minds, how AI can forecast trends. That's a big one because it does pattern recognition from customer behavior through to contingency planning for unexpected occurrences in business, how AI can be the new general manager 24/7, 365 days a year. Risk manage AI while making it most agreeable servant that is always self-developing and improving. Identify the pain points in your business and seek to automate processes. Discover which AI platforms are better suited for what tasks. improve your productivity, ability to stand out from your peers, improve your ability to operate effectively outside your core skill set, improve your ability to rapidly learn about new topics and subjects relevant to your workplace, and learn about the mindset required to constructively use AI in your workplace and life. In summary, the course looks at how to make AI the greatest tools serving you. And I think that's really, really important. And as Darren's highlighted, it's so important. AI is at the tipping point. The technology capabilities are getting far better results with less errors than they were 6 months ago. However, if you don't learn it at this level, it will be harder when the next versions roll out in the next 6 months. And then there's those who prefer the investment side of things. And we've been really doing this for a long time, the investment education, the great wealth transfer. And this is really an exciting time. Again, that image by AI, thanks to AI, highlighting the graphics there. We've been teaching our students a threefold approach, providing education, preparing for the new economy through Prepare to Prosper. And even today, we've been taking enrollments for that. In fact, someone here in this group is enrolled today, so welcome. We're looking forward to working with you next week as we get into the Prepare to Prosper. A lot of students are already signing up for that because these opportunities will not last forever. Or they're good. They were great. They're really, really good 3 years ago when I started getting into it. They're still great, but you don't want to be in the shoulda, coulda, woulda. And time is running out to make potentially generationally changing gains. We also do the Building the Wealth Foundation stuff. This is a bit of a starting place for those who don't know where to start when it comes to building a business. It's what you don't know that can get you in trouble. And I also contract to an accounting practice to help students set up asset protection, tax minimization structures. The third one is how traders profit using volatility as a friend in the stock market and embrace volatility rather than run from it in our 20 weeks advanced options trading course. And that one is, we've got a few of those students here tonight too. Welcome. It's great to have you guys here. This is one that's been going for a long time. Again, it's about systems, learning systems that professional traders use to trade by. So I ask you tonight, which course do you want to do? Which one would you like? Would you like the AI Accelerator? Or would you like investment education and the Great Wealth Transfer? Or do you want to do both? You might be in business and you're going, I need to improve on the investment education side of things. Or you might be saying, I have a job and I need to get a hold of the tools in AI, or I run a business and I need to improve my systems. I need to learn what AI is capable of. Well, you can fast track that and accelerate your growth with us tonight. I was just going to say, if you want to enroll or have some questions or have a free 15-minute consultation with me, all you need to do is email me and just give me your name, your phone number, and what state you're in. So not calling it a weird hour. There's my email there. If you'd like to get in touch, Derek@blueskyfactory.com.au. Blue is without the E. It's BLU, skyfactory.com.au. So just email me and we'd be happy to find some solutions for you. All right, I'll take some questions now. If you have any questions that you want to ask, it's over to you guys, for myself or Darren or whatever the case may be. You can either put it on your mic, open your mic up, come on camera, or you can put it in the chat.
I've just got a question for Darren. What AI platform did you say you are using?
I primarily use Claude AI at the moment, and I'm kind of lucked out that the company I work for right now has also subscribed as a corporation to Claude AI. So the reason I started with Claude was because it was better 8 months ago at coding, and I could actually use it on the command line, so it would edit all my code for me. It would connect to my server over in the US. It would upload the code. It did everything for me from the command line. I didn't have to touch it. These days, GPT is quite good at that too. But it all depends on what you want to achieve. So Claude doesn't do graphics. Nothing like what Derek's got on the screen there. It'll do really bad graphics. It depends what you want to do. For what I'm doing and for a very technical engineering sort of thing, Claude works okay. GPT, I think, would be good as well. If you want to go into the graphics and the content creation side, you want to go to another tool. And that's what Derek's setting up here with the AI Accelerator. One of the whole points of this is to try and help people understand where best to go hand over to Derek.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Someone has asked, Pascal, what do you think of people using AI to invest? With any type of investing, Pascal, it's all about risk management. And so there's another layer of risk when it comes to AI. So not all platforms do the same things as you've just heard. And so you've got to look at that and really put it in a test situation. For me, I always teach this when it comes to trading. This is a real gold nugget for you. It's all about risk management. We know what the potential upside can be, but what if it goes wrong? And I think AI adds another level of risk there. Having said that, there may be opportunities. And I do think that the technology is going to start encompassing in investment areas. But yeah, again, AI does not basically abandon you from learning about your skill set and improving your skill set because it gets it wrong. So if you're not able to spot the errors in your particular industry, you know what it's about, right? If you're not able to spot an error that AI is putting out there, you're really at risk. So this doesn't stop you from learning and becoming an expert in your area. It's making the tool work for you. The tool doesn't take over. Okay, that's really, really important. You have to remain as master. It's your slave. It's your servant. And so I think that's really, really important. So again, what are the risks when AI gets it wrong? That's what you've got to look at. Oh, thank you, Ian. Appreciate your time. Looking forward to connecting more and potentially sitting in, both your courses. Fantastic. All right. If you can email me, Ian, that'd be awesome. I'll reach out to you very soon, the next day or two. All right. Any other questions? Great question, Pascal. I think that's a really, really important point. You cannot dismiss yourself for being an expert in your area. So the more you increase, this is what I found with investing. The more I increase my knowledge, the more I reduce my risk. Okay. And what I mean by that is, I used to have people say, Derek, options trading sounds dangerous. I'm like, yeah, if you don't know what you're doing, it is. Absolutely. No worries, Ian. If you don't know what you're doing, it can be risky. But the more you learn about it, the more you actually reduce it. And, options are actually designed to hedge risk, to reduce it in the beginning. And that's why I love it, because it's so powerful. Most people don't know you can metaphorically insure your shares. When I discovered that, I was like, I got to know more. Because I had given my donations to the market, as we call it, lost money, more money than I could afford at that time. It hurt. But in some ways, it was the greatest lesson because I've come back. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today if I hadn't gone through those experiences. And I'm able to help people who have lost money as well. People call me and go, hey, I'm going through this. What do I do? So, yeah. All right. Any other final questions? We'll take one or two more before we wind up.
If no one else has a question, I don't want to just take over, but Musk is really positive about AI. You said that earlier. And, I kept thinking when he was talking, I thought, a lot of the great inventors over time, the great scientists, they came up with incredible things and it got used to, the atomic bomb, for example, for evil. Do you see that as a potential?
Pascal, it's a great question. My answer to that is this: anything can be used for good or evil. Money can be used for good or evil. The radio can be used for good or evil. Television can be used for good or evil. The internet can be used for good or evil. AI can be used for good or evil. All right? The technology is not the problem. It's the heart of mankind or humankind is the problem. And so, again, I think you're going to see legislation come in to protect humanity from that evil. But it's not going away. So I'm neutral in terms of when it comes to technology. I remember, a lot of people were freaking out about, the internet and what it can do and all this sort of stuff. I miss the days where you can go on holidays and say to somebody, I'll see you in 4 weeks. You won't be able to contact me, text me or anything. I miss those days, right? They were great days. But at the same time, I would not be talking to you like this through technology and the internet if we didn't have the internet, right? I would not be able to run a business and stay at home and watch my kids grow up, which is what I always want to do. Is one of my values is I love family. if it wasn't for the internet. So there are great benefits that do come from it as well. For me, the technology can be used for both good and evil. It's the heart of humanity, it's the issue. Great question. Does the AI Accelerator course point towards the use of specific platforms and softwares? Well, that's a great question. Is it Johan? I think that's how I pronounce it, Johan. Forgive me if it's wrong. The beauty of this is what you got to understand, and Darren explained this beautifully to me a few weeks ago. We're discussing this. AI is not static. It is fluid. It is always improving. It is always learning. It is doing more and more pattern recognition. And what that means is that if one level of AI platforms is good today, it does not mean it's going to be great tomorrow. And the beauty of this course is we're not loyal to any of them. Okay, you can flick, switch, and all this sort of stuff. So, you know, those graphics I was doing, that was on one AI platform. 6 months ago, it wasn't doing that at all. It's really come a long way in 6 months. So what's going to happen in the next 6 months? Well, you got to be able to pivot in business. You can't just keep static. We're going to do this forever. There may be better things that come on the market. And because AI is always learning as well, this is the dynamic. This is going to be an ongoing thing where you go, okay, it could be great today, but maybe not tomorrow, or it might be even better tomorrow. So that's what we're dealing with in the whole AI sector. Great question. All right, maybe one final, if anybody has one. One final. Speak now, forever hold your peace.
Hi, Derek. I was just wondering, these courses on screen, are they in addition to what you offer on the previous slide that you had with the Prepare to Prosper, the options, and the building the wealth? Are these in addition to those?
The AI Accelerator is an addition, yes. We've got about 3 or 4 different options for those who want to go down the investment path in terms of courses. So yeah, I can discuss that further with you. We try to match what the client needs, what you're after, what kind of education you need, and tailor it for that. So
No worries, thanks.
people like trading and want the markets and do that sort of stuff. Others are more of an investment mindset. So we just work at what that client needs. Matt says, how long do I have until registration closed for each course? So we are starting the Prepare to Prosper course on Tuesday this week. I think it is. Just let me double check the date. I believe it's this week. And we'll be commencing the AI one in the next 2 weeks. I haven't decided on that date yet. We will be announcing that very, very soon. We also, in a consideration of scheduling our courses, we just considered time zones where people are located. So yeah, just get in touch with me and we can basically go through that with you. But the Prepare to Prosper one's happening on Tuesday in the evening. All right, I want to thank you so much for joining us. You've given me one of your most precious assets. That's your time. Thank you tonight. Please get in touch with me if you want a free 15-minute consult. Just email me, derek@blueskyfactory.com.au. Fantastic. Remember to do your life purpose. That is what it's all about. And there are exciting times ahead as we meet through the whole industrial revolution in the mix of the great wealth transfer. Thanks so much. Good night.